Carolina. Welcome to Awesome Radio 106.9 on your FM dial. You can also join us online at wbisawesomeradio.org. Check us out on our social media platforms as well, on Facebook and on YouTube. We interrupt this regularly scheduled broadcast to bring to you a special talk with Akila, and my guest today is Dr. Cornegay, PhD. Dr. Cornegay, PhD. And today we're talking about Men of Change presents the Spiritually Understanding the Impact of Mental Health Symposium event that is happening this Friday and this Saturday. So we want to share this information with you on today to get the word out. Yeah, my name is Akila Thickpen McCardell, and again, welcome to Awesome Radio Special Talk with Akila. Dr. Cornegay, welcome to this show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm definitely glad to be here.
All right. So we're going to spend the next 25 minutes or so, depending on how juicy the conversation will be, about the Men of Change and their symposium that they're having on this weekend, Friday and Saturday. So for the next 25 minutes, I'll say it will be juicy, a conversation that you can get involved in social media, 252 756 313. No, that's not the right number. 252 756 2008 is the number to call in if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about our talk on today. That's 252 756 2008. Again, a special talk today with Akila. In the studio with me is Dr. Dalton Cornegay, PhD. Men of Change presents Spiritually Understanding the Impact of Mental Health. Tell us about what is going to happen on Friday about spiritually understanding the impact of mental health.
Yes, well, thank you so much. So, first of all, to answer your question, on Friday, we're going to start off with our uh, part one or segment one. We're going to be kicking off Friday evening at 6:30. And we're going to have different steering committee members and different of our individuals that are going to be talking from the perspective about mental health, from a church perspective, from a personal perspective, from a relationship perspective. I think that mental health is a serious issue that don't really get the credit. It really don't get the attention that it deserves. Along with that, we're going to have a real good friend of mine, Dr. Williams out of Jacksonville, who works in addictive medicine, that's going to be talking about depression and dealing with anxiety. Now, Dr. Williams have been doing this for a very, very long time. So, into his own credit, and to his own testament, I like to dub him as being a expert or somewhat of a savant when it comes to mental health and dealing with addictive medicine issues. So we're going to get high in the weeds as far as breaking down what anxiety and depression is, the causes and triggers that goes along with anxiety and depression. Also going to be talking about the actual symptomology that goes along, the type of things that people can look for, the different indicators to say that this person could possibly be having some concerns and some issues. And last but not least, it wouldn't be a symposium if we talk about it and go over the symptomology and don't give some type of antidote or give some type of help as far as dealing with that. So we're going to let Dr. Williams come in and do what he does, and he's going to really inform us and give us a wealth of information with mental health in the aspect of both anxiety and depression.
Now, when you say addictive medicine, does that mean medication that you're prescribed and that it served its purpose, but now you're addicted to it? You don't need it anymore, but you're just addicted to it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, when you're talking about addictive medication, you're spot on. That's exactly what it pretty much means. However, addictive medicines can also be for other medications that people get a hold of and use. And instead of it being used for the purpose for in which it was designed, people will start using it for abuse. And one example of that is the fentanyl. Fentanyl is basically in the same family of pain relieving drugs, but people have become addicted to it, and they use this fentanyl for the sensation of being mellow out and being numb. But however, and I won't get too high in the weeds with that. For an example, with the fentanyl, is that people don't realize the extremely potent level that it is, the toxicity that it also contains. And so if you are addicted or using medication of any sort outside of the directions of your personal doctor or what it was designed for, addiction can take place, and it's not always intentional. However, we have to be careful and make sure we stick to the guidelines.
So let's be clear. You're not talking about street drugs. You're talking about prescribed drugs.
Absolutely. But I will add to that, sometimes street drugs and the different drugs that everyday, I would say our everyday street farmers, pharmacists hustle, sometimes are medications that they get from a drugstore or they get from someone else, and they actually promote those and they sell those just like, a regular pharmacy does. So just because we're thinking about, something from an actual pharmacy, let's not be how would I say, misguided to think that regular medication can't wind up in the wrong hand of the wrong people.
Okay. So before we go forward to Saturday, Men of Change. Tell us about Men of Change, about this organization, who started it, how long have you been in existence?
Absolutely. Men of Change have been around actually since 2006. Men of Change was basically spawned and came into the existence from me listening when I was working in drug testing and drug research in the Raleigh area, coming home in the afternoons and in the evenings listening to my wife, who was at that time an educator, recently promoted into administration, would just come home and she would be completely tired and wore out, talking about all of the discipline problems and all the headaches and the issues that she had encountered during the day. So, in essence, I volunteered at her school to come out and to really speak to some of the young men at her school, different groups, and she designed a group called BOSS, and that stood for Boys of Standard and Success, to really hear their side of the story. A lot of times, we get labeled as far as having issues and having problems, and he's a bad child, or, she's a bad child, or whatever the case may be. But how often do someone really give a listening ear intentionally to really hear their side, what it is that they're going through? What are they experiencing when they act out or when they misbehave or get into a fight or say something to a teacher or whatever the case may be. So that's how that got started. I started mentoring at the school. From one school, I started mentoring into 3-4 other schools across the city and in other cities and across the state. And from that point, working with other nonprofit organizations, and went back to school and got a master's and got a PhD. I started doing some relationship and family counseling from a faith-based perspective. And from that point, we created and we started Men of Change. Now, Men of Change, in layman's term, is a men's ministry or men's organization that help the everyday man to deal with issues, situations that he may not necessarily get the opportunity to talk about or to deal with on a daily basis. We get deep and down in as far as talking about personal issues, relationships, job situations, conflict that they may be having at church, different things that they may be going through intrapersonal as well as interpersonal. And we just try to provide a safe space where they can talk about their issues with other brothers that have gone through some of the same things that they have, and just let them know, in essence, that they are not alone in whatever it is that they may be facing and dealing with at that time. So we provide a support system a listening ear, and provide them with some insight and then with some directions of some different things that they can utilize to help their situation.
Are you expecting participation from the audience, men that are there?
Absolutely. That's what our annual symposium is all about. There's a lot of information that is given each and every year. I do want to back up and just also add to the fact that this is our 14th annual symposium. So we've been doing this for 14 years.
Okay.
And so with the information that is given, yes, at the end of the presentation, Dr. Williams wrap up with his piece. We will definitely be canvassing the audience as well as doing some online questions should some have happened to come in, and we will address and we will take those questions and we will do our very, very best to get answers to those people that may have questions.
Now, for those who have questions but really don't want to be exposed or known,
Okay.
is there a number that they can call to ask or to talk with someone else that is not so public?
Yeah, I think that a couple of different routes can be taken with that. They can call in and be anonymous, or, we have a alternate number that they can call in and express their situation or their concern or their question. And we can probably have some time set up, if not on Friday. We're going to have a full panel discussion on Saturday. So we can, if we don't get a chance to address whatever that question may be from the anonymous caller, then hopefully we can add that to our panel of questions that we're going to be discussing and dealing with on Saturday.
Okay. Men of Change presents Spiritually Understanding the Impact of Mental Health. And Men of Change, as Dr. Cornegay said, is a mentorship for men mentoring men. So we spoke about this Friday, October the 6th. It's at 6:30 p.m. and Dr. Williams from Jacksonville, you said, right?
Yes, that
will
is
be
correct.
the keynote speaker, understanding depression and anxiety, especially medicated drugs, being addicted to that. And then on Saturday, beginning 8 o'clock a.m., it's a meet and greet. And then you yourself, Dr. Cornegay, will be the keynote speaker, understanding the impact of mental health. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, actually, we're going to have kind of a three-part segment on Saturday. We're going to open up with another good friend of mine, Professor Dr. Reginald Watson's going to come in, and he's going to talk about the impact that mental health issues and crises have had on the minority community. And he's going to shed some light on the plight and where things are because of over the years and over a period of time of how people have gone throughout their life dealing and struggling with mental health issues. And so sometimes when we look at the socioeconomic status of people, we really don't understand why sometimes people are going through what they're going through. And we can be quick to judge, say, well, that person is lazy, or they won't do this and they don't want to do that. They want a handout. They want something for free. However, how often do we pause, stop, and think about what is really going on with that person? Have that person somehow been, be it discreetly, racially profiled? Have they been shown biasness where they have lost their confidence and don't think that they can, get a job that they feel like is conducive to their skill sets and their abilities? Or maybe they've experienced, loss somehow in their own life, or of a loved one or a family member, or whatever the case may be. There's a plethora of things that could happen to a person at a given point in time that could actually affect the landscape of their life. And so we want to be able to look at some of those conditions and look at some of those situations and talk about that with Dr. Watson. He's going to be doing a great experiment on that and some things that we can take away to better arm ourselves when it comes to social aspect and when it comes to the civics standpoint to try to put ourselves in a position that we can win. And then after that, we're going to have a nice short break. We're going to have some coffee and some refreshments, and the guys get a chance to mingle a little bit. You're going to come back with yours truly, and then I'm going to add the other piece to the puzzle and really talk about the two pieces as far as mental health from a clinical, medical, personal standpoint, and also looking at it through the eyes from a spiritual standpoint. So I feel like that's kind of the gift that God has given me, is to be able to marry those two pieces together, where people can see not only the clinical aspect or the medical aspect to various social, mental health, and personal issues, but also looking at it through the eyes and the way that God sees it, and the way that we should be moving throughout our life, understanding and dealing with it according to Scripture and according to what God reveals to our own spirit. So I'm very, very excited about breaking that down and getting into that and really marrying up the mental health and the spiritual side from that, and how to make that work from a godly standpoint.
All right.
And go ahead.
So this event, Friday and Saturday, this Friday, October 6th and October 7th on Saturday, it's at the Bachelor Benedict Club, 707 Wyatt Street in Greenville. Bachelor Benedict Club. Please don't let that name make your mind go somewhere else. It's just a building, Bachelor Benedict Club.
Yes.
It's at 707 Wyatt Street in Greenville. It's happening this weekend, Saturday, Friday, and Saturday. I attended the one last year on service. I was there for a service call, and it was quite interesting. Even though it's called Men of Change, the group or the organization Men of Change, women were still there. So is that by design that women attend a men conference or a men organization or event?
Well, I mean, we've talked about that with the steering committee and with the ministry at large. And so what God has basically blessed us and given us a unique diversity is that Men of Change Annual Symposium is normally a 2-day event. So the first day event, that Friday, is open to the general public at large. Every man, every woman, every chick, every child, please come to learn and to weigh in about your personal mental health. And Saturday, we normally set aside to deal with the men, as I forestated, where they can have that time, that safe haven, that safe space to really talk about the various issues from a manly perspective, don't necessarily feel misunderstood, won't, feel judged, where they can just really talk about the issues that they may be reluctant to talk about and open up in other different settings.
Now, we know that most men are reluctant to talk about their personal issues, the mental health, the whole gamut of their life. So if there were women in attendance, do you think that they might hold back in case someone's spouse or significant other is there and they may not want them to know?
Well, I would say this, if, to each his own. Everyone has their own way as far as how they deal with things or what their safe space may be.
Okay.
So again, I would encourage them to come in and listen and to gather information on Friday, and then be ready and be prepared to discuss their situation on Saturday if they would like. But let me say this, excuse me. There's always a way to get the information that you need with not necessarily putting yourself on Front Street if you should feel reluctant. And I like to think about and use this token or this slogan. You can always say that I have this friend or I have this relative with this situation.
Yeah.
But guess who this friend and this relative really is?
It's you.
There you go.
I used to do that
Absolutely.
in another situation.
Understand.
Okay. So then, thank you so much for tuning in to Awesome Radio 1069, this special report, special talk with Aquila. Dr. Cornegay is with me, Dr. Dalton Cornegay, PhD, and we're here talking about the Men of Change Symposium that's happening this Friday and this Saturday. Friday begins at 6:30 p.m. Great discussion with Dr. Williams, understanding depression and anxiety. Saturday begins at 8 o'clock a.m. with the meet and greet. Dr. Cornegay himself will be the guest keynote speaker. understanding the impact of mental health, along with other things that will be happening on Saturday. A panel discussion will be
Yes.
happening. So, questions and answers will be all out there, and it's all around the mental health, okay? The mental health. And if our mental health is not right, we're not right.
Absolutely.
So it's happening at 707 Wyatt Street in Greenville, the Bachelor Benedette Club. So tell me why that location.
Well, I looked at it as that, first of all, we was trying to get some other locations. The place that we normally have, we no longer have access because the building is going through some reconstruction. And so we've kind of been looking around. Again, we do not have the large sponsors, so we're still kind of a small ministry. We're still a small organization. So we kind of have to work within our shoestring budget. Last year we was there. The group there, they really provided us top-notch service. They worked within our budget. They provided everything that we needed. Everybody was, even though it's right off the heels of being kind of in the main heart of the city, we definitely felt safe there. We had everything that we need. Everything went without a hitch. And so God just opened the door and gave us favor, and we're back there this year, even with a greater discount. So we're planning to be there until they kick us out. It serves the purpose.
Bachelor Benedict Club, 707 Wyatt Street in Greenville, this Friday, October 6th, and Saturday, October 7th. So mental health really just came out on the forefront during COVID. So was it there all along, just laying dormant, or it's just something now to be discussed because people are saying, because of COVID, my mental health is not right? So tell me about the mental health, and when did it first come out, and why is it so important now?
Well, let's just look at it from this perspective. Mental health issues have always been around and has always been a problem, even since the beginning of time.
Okay.
When we read the various stories and the various plights that took place in the Bible, if we read and study close enough and in depth enough, we can definitely understand and see that at various times, men of God went through different anguishments, situations that let you know that there was things that was going on with their mental capacity that wasn't on point. And one that pops in my head readily was Saul. Saul allowed his narcissistic attitude, his selfishness, and his envy for God's favor on David to get into way of what God had for him and wanted him to be and do. So that's just one example. Moses went through some mental health issues and some different anguishments when he got angry and went against God and did things that God told him not to do and smoked the rock and so on and so forth. He lost his faith. He went into depression because the people started complaining and they started moaning. So there's been issues documented throughout scripture where mental health has always been a problem. But for the sake of recent and today modern times, again, it's always been there. However, in the black community, in the minority community, it's been taboo because talking about mental health, getting into the situations that people go through, dealing with crisis and so on and so forth, has always been looked at, has always been kind of shunned as far as being weak, being crazy, or being some type of a misfit, which is totally the opposite. When you understand that your mental capacity, I didn't mean to cut you off, and I'll finish this thought, and I'll turn it right back over to you. When you take the authority and you take the rightful place over your life and say that I know that there's something that's not right or something is off
We have 30
with me
seconds left.
mentally, that is very, very strong.
Okay, so the Men of Change, Spiritually Understanding the Impact of Mental Health Symposium is happening this Friday and this Saturday. Friday at 6:30 p.m. with Dr. Williams, and Saturday beginning 8 a.m. meet and greet with Dr. Dalton Carnegie. We invite you to join the Men of Change. this Friday and this Saturday at the Bachelor Benedict Club, 707 Wyatt Street in Greenville. Saturday discussion panel will cover practical ways of coping and dealing with mental health concerns. For more information, 252-714-2145. This is Awesome Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Christian inspiration for the family and ministry teaching